Welcome back. All right. So I have wanted to do a power ranking of the tandems in the National Hockey League. So just taking into consideration the likely top two. Likely, meaning that for Utah, for instance, I have Vanacek in here instead of Ingram, just because we're not sure. We know that they brought in Vanacek to potentially play backup. And so that's how I ranked all these, was going by the most likely to be the backups. And the difference between Ingram and Vanacek in terms of the numbers that I used for this, not entirely different. So what I did was I took into account goals saved above expected for the last 3 years. So because goaltenders have up years and down years, 3 years is what I wanted to look back on. I've got all the numbers here, and I'll go through it as I populate this board with magnets. I also took into consideration the percentage of quality starts. So a quality start is a safe percentage above 900 in a game. A goaltender who's more consistent in keeping their save percentage above 900 game in and game out is more likely to get those wins. I also took into account games played and the level of experience. So there are some inexperienced backups. I can't just assume that they're going to be great. I can't assume that a goaltender who's played a handful of games is just going to figure it out and they're going to be fine. And the importance of the backup had to be a part of this too, because there are some teams who play their starters a lot and their starters are very effective versus some teams that do have a true 1A, 1B setup. So I didn't necessarily have the 1A, 1B automatically ahead of a team that might have a weaker backup, because if they're playing their starters 60, 65 games a year and that starter is excellent, that has to be factored in as well. So all the preamble aside, and I'll go ahead and grab my piece of paper here. So if you hear rustling, it's because I got the piece of paper. But 32nd on the board, and this is a brand new set of magnets I'm debuting here, so kind of exciting. 32nd on the board is the San Jose Sharks. So the San Jose Sharks, the issue here is simple. You've got Askarov, who did have goals saved above expected in the positive this year, but that's the only year of record. And to qualify, it had to be 10 games or more played in a season by a goaltender. So this past season was the only time that took place, and his quality starts 57.1%. Whereas Nedeljkovic, he's played 91 games over the last 3 years, and he's been a negative in terms of goals saved above expected all 3 years of the last 3 seasons. 46.9% of his starts have been quality starts. Number 31, the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins wrapping up what is the very small bottom row. For Pittsburgh, they have Jari, who had a negative in terms of goals saved above expected, and he's had that twice in the last 3 years. 57.7% quality starts. His backup is projected to be Shilov's. Now, Bloomquist could technically still get it, but then you have a mess because Shilov's has to pass waivers. But Shilov's has only played 19 games. He was a negative in goals saved above expected. In fact, per 60 minutes, he had the worst goals saved above expected in the NHL this past season. And 44.4% in terms of his quality starts percentage. That being said, I hope that Shilov's kills all those numbers this year and proves me 100% wrong on this. But I can only go by the numbers that are on the paper. So moving up to the next row, and in 30th place, Columbus. The Columbus Blue Jackets in 30th. Let me go ahead and flip this over. Columbus, Merzlikins was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this year and has been for all 3 seasons. 43.7% in terms of quality starts for Merzlikins. That's low. Greaves actually bumps him up a bit. He's only played 21 games, but he was a plus in terms of goals saved above expected. And 65% of his starts were quality starts. So those numbers are pretty good. Those are pretty good numbers overall. And so Columbus ends up 30th instead of lower because Greaves projects to be a pretty good goaltender in the National Hockey League. But Elvis definitely weighs things down. 29th, Philadelphia. So on the upside for the Flyers, they're not last. And they've been last for a while. Vladar definitely helps. Vladar was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected. That's after 2 seasons where he was a negative. So he's going to want to stay away from being a negative. But even if he is a negative in Philly, comparatively speaking with the numbers put up by Fedotov and Kolosov this past season, 45.1% in terms of quality starts, and that's over the last 3 years. The quality starts percentage is the last 3 years. I should have wrote that up there as well, because I wanted it to be an average more than just this past season. And then you've got Ersson. He was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected. 2 out of the last 3 years. In fact, the last 2 seasons he's been a negative. The 2 years ago he was a positive in goals saved above expected. 47.1% of his starts quality. Like I said, Vladar's 45.1%. So both of them below 50%. The Flyers at 29th. At 28th, Chicago. The Chicago Blackhawks come in at 28th. On the Chicago side, Spencer Knight was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected. The one other season that qualifies with him having 10 games or more, he was actually a negative, 49.1% in terms of his quality starts over the last 3 seasons. Soderblom was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected, but the 2 seasons that preceded that, he was a negative. 41.3% in terms of quality starts for Soderblom for the Chicago Blackhawks. Number 27, Buffalo. The Buffalo Sabres, and it is interesting that all of these teams are not necessarily expected to be playoffs, the exception of Columbus. If Greaves is the starter and if he can get off to a really, really good run at the beginning. But Buffalo not expected to be in the mix. Luukkonen was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected. He's been a negative 2 of the last 3 seasons. 52.9% quality starts isn't bad. Lyon has been brought in to be the backup. And the interesting thing with Lyon is he's been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected all 3 of the seasons used to compile this list. He has a 53% in terms of quality starts. So Lyon may end up getting more starts than one might expect if Luukkonen has any kind of struggles this year. On the board at 26, Nashville. Nashville, the Preds shouldn't be this low, but Saros, his numbers have not been great. He was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this past season and has been for the last 2 seasons. He had a great year 2 years ago. The last 2 seasons, his numbers have not been fantastic. 55.1% in terms of quality starts. Then you've got Annunen, who was a negative with goals saved above expected this year. He was a positive the year before. 46.5% for quality starts for Nashville's Annunen. Then Calgary comes in at 25th. So the Calgary Flames are 25th. They're weighed down by the backup, and I'll explain why. So Wolf was a positive this past season in terms of goals saved above expected. A negative the year before, but young goaltender, it happens. 53.6% in terms of quality starts for Wolf. Prosvetov was a positive in 2024. He did not play 10 games this past season. So 2024, the only season of record, 46.7% in terms of goals saved above expected, and he's had his struggles, thus the not playing 10 games this past season. So Prosvetov weighs Calgary down a little bit, especially with Wolf only being in his second full season as a starter. A little bit shaky there for Calgary. We'll see if Cooley beats out Prosvetov for that, but I think Prosvetov's going to be the backup at this point. 24th, Seattle. So the Seattle Kraken come in 24th. Seattle weighed down by Grubauer. Even though Decord's number's excellent, he was a positive this past season and the year before in terms of goals saved above expected. 58.1% quality starts number. But Grubauer, a negative all 3 seasons that I used for this to compile it. 45.8% in terms of quality starts for Grubauer. It is a hefty job that they have decided they're going to undertake in trying to turn him around this offseason, and we'll know in about a month and a half's time how that went for him. At 23rd on the board, Minnesota Wild. So for the Minnesota Wild, it definitely helps that Gustafsson had an excellent season. Gustafsson, positive in terms of goals saved above expected and has been 2 of the last 3 years for Minnesota. 59.4% quality starts. But Wallsted's numbers, first off, he doesn't qualify. He's only played 5 NHL games, and he's had a quality start in 2 of the 5. So Wallsted's lack of a track record, and he had a rough year this past season, means that I have the Wild at 23rd. I think Wallsted's probably going to be fine, but I can only go with what's on the sheet. And Gustafson's been pretty solid for them. So if he has to play 55 plus games, he can. I don't know if that's a great idea, but he can. Number 22 on the board is Anaheim. The Ducks could surprise, and this may end up being too low of a ranking, to be honest. Dostal had a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this season, but the 2 seasons prior, he was a negative. 54.8% quality starts. Mrazek, he was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this past season. He's been a negative twice in the last 3 years. But 53.5% in terms of quality starts for Mrazek. If Mrazek can have a little better of a season, and if Dostal can play the way he did the first half of last year, the Ducks are too low on this board. But I can only go by the numbers I got. 21st, and the only team I don't have with this magnet is Utah. Because the Rico pack of 6 that I used for these, Utah's not available in that yet. What's up with that? Anyways, for Utah, their goaltending is, of course, Vejmelka and Vanacek. As I mentioned, I used Vanacek instead of Ingram. Vejmelka was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this past season. Has been 2 of the last 3 seasons. 48.2% quality starts. That's low. I thought he'd be higher than that. Vanacek, he was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected and has been 2 of the last 3 seasons. 52.5% quality starts for Vanacek. So his number actually ends up being a little bit higher than the number for Vejmelka, which is weird. 20th on the list, Vegas. Yes, Vegas, and it's a lack of a track record for the backup that, again, kind of causes them to be a little bit lower. Aiden Hill has been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected for the last 3 years. 54.6% in terms of quality starts. Akira Schmid in 2024 was a negative. In 2023 was a positive with goals saved above expected. He did not play 10 games this past season. 50% quality starts over the last 3 years for Akira Schmid. At 19th, Boston. The Boston Bruins, and this is where it gets tricky, and this is part of the reason why I like using the last 3 years. Swayman's numbers before this past season were good. And so I feel like a bounce back from Swayman is likely, but I didn't bet on enough of a bounce back to put Boston in the top half. Swayman, of course, a negative with goals saved above expected this past season. He was a positive the previous 2 years. 54.5% quality starts for Swayman. Korpisalo was a negative this past season in goals saved above expected. Has been a negative 2 of the last 3 years. 51.8% quality starts for Korpisalo. So, yeah, Boston hoping that both goaltenders can bounce back from being negatives this past season. Moving up into the 18th spot here as we get into the next row, and it's Edmonton. Edmonton's goaltending gets a lot of flack, but the overall numbers are not bad. They're not fantastic, but they're not bad. Looking at Edmonton, Skinner and Pickard were both negatives in terms of goals saved above expected this past season, but Skinner was a positive the previous 2 seasons, and also has Skinner has 56.1% in terms of his quality starts. Sorry, my phone went kind of weird there, so I'm just going to turn that off. It started doing the talk to text, and I don't know why. I don't know what I said to cause that. Pickard has played 2 seasons of 10 or more games. I think it's last year and the year before. He was in the minors for a while. But he was a negative this past season, a positive the year before that. 56.9% quality starts for Calvin Pickard of the Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah, the Oilers numbers aren't bad with their goaltenders, so it leaves them right around the middle of the pack. 17th, Montreal Canadiens. So, middle of the pack is Montreal. This formula takes into account Dobesh, and I know they went out and got Kakinen. I still think Kakinen ends up in the AHL. I think Dobesh's numbers would indicate he should at least start the season with Montreal. Montembeault has been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected for the last 3 seasons. 59% quality starts for Montembeault. Very well done. Dobesh has only played 16 NHL games. He was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this past season. And for Dobesh, 53.3% in the positive. If I had used Kakinen for this, because I know people are going to ask, what if you used Kakinen? I think they would have been ranked lower. Dobesh's numbers are positive. Kakinen's numbers are not positive. And in terms of the overall analytics side of things. Number 16, so we move into the top half, and it's Vancouver. Yes, the Vancouver Canucks in the top half. There will be people who say they're too high, and there'll be people saying they're too low, because everybody has an opinion on Thatcher Demko. He was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this season, and has been 2 of the last 3 years. 50.9% his quality starts number. Lankinen, he was a positive all 3 of the last 3 seasons. He also has a quality start number of 57.1%, so very high number there. The one thing to keep in mind with Lankinen, 94 games played over those 3 years. Demko's played 106. So that's part of the reason why I kept track of how many games they've played over the last 3 years as well, just because sample size is different, and Lankinen hasn't really been a starter outside of this past season for Vancouver, and you could see that he was tired at points this past season. So Vancouver can't overplay him again. Moving up to number 15. Turn the sheet over again. It's the LA Kings. So there you go, LA Kings. The Los Angeles Kings, they've had a change in net as well. Darcy Kemper's still the starter. He had a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this past season, and has for 2 of the last 3. 55.9% quality starts for him. For Forsberg, he was a positive this past season with goals saved above expected. He has been 2 of the last 3 years. His quality starts number 48.8%. So that number is kind of low, but in general, the LA Kings still a pretty good tandem. Forsberg's good. Kemper, I do have some concerns that he's getting older at this point. He had a great season this past year. We'll see if he can follow that up. Number 14, Carolina. Carolina would be higher except for one thing. Right. Rasmus. No, Freddie Anderson and the whole health problem. Because Anderson's played 72 games the last 3 years. So that is definitely a consideration. Anderson, a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this season, and 2 of the last 3 years as well. 57.8% quality starts for him. Whereas Kochetkov has played 113 games. He's been a positive all 3 years that I used for this. In terms of goals saved above expected, 50.9% quality starts for Kochetkov. So that's where things get interesting too, is there are goaltenders who give you those quality starts, and then there are goaltenders who do a really good job of saving those pucks other goalies might not, and sometimes those numbers are completely different. So kind of fun. It's part of the reason it's so hard to rank goaltenders. It really is. 13th, the New York Islanders. All right, Islanders. Sorokin is just, he does Sorokin things. Positive in terms of goals saved above expected for the last 3 years, because of course, 64% quality starts. Riddick's the backup. Riddick's played 79 games over the last 3 years. He was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this past season. Has been a negative 2 of the last 3 years. 52.1% quality starts for Riddick. So, and I'm using Riddick because Varlamov, we still don't know what his status is and when he's coming back, if he's going to play, what's going to happen. So I used Riddick for the Islanders, but Varlamov's numbers this last season weren't great at the time he was injured. So I don't know if Varlamov moves that up or moves that down, or what would have happened if I had included him in the calculation. 12th, Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators, good job getting their goaltending together. So you've got Ullmark, who's been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected over the last 3 years. 71.5% quality starts. Excellent for Ullmark. Marilainen has only played 14 NHL games, which is why the Sens are not top 10. If Marilainen has a really good year, and if Ullmark has another amazing year, next year when I do this, they'd be wearing the Florida Blockbusters jersey again. I just find it amazing that we almost got the Florida Blockbusters. Can you imagine if it was the Florida Blockbusters instead of the Panthers that won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row? Man. Anyways, for the Sens, this upcoming season, if Marilainen plays really well, we might be talking about the Sens being in that top 8, somewhere around there. Because that's 61.5% quality starts number for Marilainen. That's excellent. We'll see how things go with him having his first full season in the National Hockey League. At 11th, the Florida Panthers. The almost Blockbusters, as it were. So, for the Florida Panthers, Bobrovsky, we know, is excellent. Positive in terms of goals saved above expected for the last 3 seasons. 60.9% in terms of his quality starts, but Tarasov does weigh it down a bit. Not a lot, because we know Bobrovsky's going to play a bunch. Tarasov had a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this past season, and has for 2 of the last 3 years. 44.8% quality starts for Tarasov. That's a bit of an ouch. But like I said, Bobrovsky kind of drags this up. At 10th, the Rangers. The New York Rangers, Shesterkin definitely keeps him in the top 10. He's had a positive in terms of goals saved above expected for the last 3 years. He's played 174 games as well, so that's an average of almost 60 games per year. 57.5% in terms of his quality start number, but Jonathan Quick kind of weighs this down. He ended up with a negative this past season in terms of goals saved above expected, and has had a negative 2 of the last 3 years. His quality starts over that time, 40.2%. 40. I was surprised too. I honestly thought Jonathan Quick had a pretty good year, but the overall numbers tell you he's had his struggles. I think he had a good first half and a rough second half. But either way, it causes the Rangers to end up at 10th rather than higher up. 9th on the list, the New Jersey Devils. All right, so the Devils are 9th. You've got Markstrom, you've got Allen. What's interesting is both of them were positives in terms of goals saved above expected. Markstrom's been a positive 2 of the last 3 years. Allen's been a negative 2 of the last 3 years. So he was a negative both years before this past season. He could regress. 48.4% quality starts for Markstrom. 48.5% quality starts for Jake Allen. So very similar numbers between these two goaltenders who are trying to get the Devils back to the promised land for the first time since 2003. Moving up to number 8, and it's Tampa. Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, led by Vasilevsky. He was a positive this year in terms of goals saved above expected, and has been 2 of the last 3 years, meaning he had a year where he wasn't. 58.3% quality starts for Vasilevsky. Johansson, a bit more of an issue. He was a negative this past season in terms of goals saved above expected. He has been a negative 2 of the last 3 years. And interestingly enough, 43.2% quality starts for Johansson, just a little bit higher than Jonathan Quick. So that's your 8th spot on the countdown. 7th is the Washington Capitals. So the Caps, pretty good tandem overall. And looking at the numbers, Thompson has been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected for all 3 of the last 3 years. Yep. 59.2% in terms of quality starts. Lindgren, he was a negative in terms of goals saved above expected this past season, has been a negative 2 of the last 3 years there, and 52.7% quality starts for Charlie Lindgren. So that wraps up that second row. Now we're going to get into the top row. The top row starts at 6 with the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues, pretty good tandem overall. You got Binnington, who was a positive in terms of goals saved above expected this year, has been a positive 2 of the last 3 years, and is highly likely to be Team Canada's goaltender again at the Olympics. 53.9% quality starts for Binnington. And Hofer, he was a negative with goals saved above expected this past season. He was a positive the year before that. His 2 years in the NHL. 52.5% quality starts for Hofer, which isn't bad. And I think Hofer's going to bounce back and get his goals saved above expected into a better range this coming season. That's my thought. 5th on the board is Colorado. Man, what a difference a year makes. The Colorado Avalanche a year ago, it would have been Annunen and Georgiev, and we had a lot to talk about. Now it's Blackwood and Wedgwood. Both of them were positives in terms of goals saved above expected. Both of them have been positives 2 of the last 3 years, and they have the same number. I did a double take when I saw this the first time. I'm doing it again. 54.4% quality starts for both Blackwood and Wedgwood. So whether it's Black or Wedge, doesn't matter. 122 games played by Blackwood, 77 games played by Wedgwood over that 3-year period. So that tells you who the starter's going to be, but the backup's pretty good too, and you don't really experience any drop-off between them. So that's what makes for a good tandem. Which brings us to number 4, and it might surprise people that I have Detroit at number 4, but I have good reason to have Detroit's goaltending at 4. Starting off with Talbot. He had a positive in terms of goals saved above expected. Gibson did as well. For Talbot, he's had a positive 2 of the last 3 years. 58.3% of his starts, quality starts. Gibson was a positive this past season, had a really good year which kind of nullifies the 2 bad years before that. I think Gibson's back to playing like he can. 49.2% quality starts. Interestingly enough, Talbot's played 137 games. Gibson's played 128. This should be truly a 1A, 1B situation in Detroit. Todd McClellan can roll out whichever goaltender he wants with full faith that goaltender is going to be able to handle it. Could be an interesting season for Detroit if that works out. At third on the list is Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets. Yep. For the Winnipeg Jets, Hellebuck and Comrie both were positives this past season. Now, for Comrie, he had a negative number with goals saved above expected the 2 seasons prior. Hellebuck, all 3 of the last 3 seasons, he's been a positive because it's Connor Hellebuck. Of course he has. 67.7% quality starts number for Hellebuck, and for Comrie, 49%. So Comrie's numbers actually aren't that bad, and they don't play him that much because they play Hellebuck a ton. So that's how the Jets end up third on the list. Second on the list, and I'm sure their fans are going to be like, where are we? Did he forget us? No, the Toronto Maple Leafs are second. So while Stolarz was underrated according to a lot of Leaf fans and whatnot, this tandem has been fantastic. Now, it is worthy of note, Stolarz has played 80 games over the last 3 years, and Woll has played 74. However, both of them were positives in terms of goals saved above expected. Stolarz has been a positive all 3 seasons of the last 3 years, and Woll, in the 2 years that qualified, was a positive in both. So both goaltenders, excellent numbers all around. For Stolarz, 62.3% quality starts number, and for Woll, a 57.8% quality starts number. So both of them, very good numbers overall, and it brings Toronto up to number 2 on the overall list. But see, those 80 games played by Stolarz over the last 3 years, that's why when I was ranking starting goaltenders, I didn't rank him as high as a lot of people wanted me to, because he just hasn't had a full season as a starter, uninjured at this point. So I'd want to see how he do over a season where he plays 50-plus games. Maybe we get there. Maybe him and Woll just both play 41 this year. We'll find out. Which brings us to first place. I went back and forth on this a little bit, but I settled on Dallas. It is Dallas. Ottinger and DeSmith, and this really is a matter of DeSmith's had a remarkable couple of years. Ottinger's been a positive in terms of goals saved above expected all 3 years that I used for this. Whereas DeSmith, positive this year and last year. He was a negative the year before that in Pittsburgh. 58.7% quality starts for Ottinger. 52.4% quality starts number for DeSmith. DeSmith's played 94 games over the last 3 years and 174 played by Ottinger. So pretty solid tandem all around. We'll see how things turn out when the season gets rolling. It is interesting to look at this and see how many teams that we're not necessarily expecting a lot from, that their goaltending might be down towards the bottom, but I think that's kind of to be expected during rebuilds. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. I spent hours coming up with all these numbers, writing them all on the board and everything, so I did my best to come up with something that I feel like it accurately reflects who I think the best tandems are in the National Hockey League. But do let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. And just for people who are going to... this isn't a touchscreen. I can't actually make it bigger. So I will bring the board a little bit closer. How far do I have? I guess, see, this is why the board is always tilted. Because the studio light shines off of it if it isn't. That's about as close as I can get. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.